nationhood, statecraft, police power, public utility, social police, anti-monopoly, unfair competition, and social provision will be examined in turn for the insights they provide into this great transformation in public law and public policy. And the many lists and thicker descriptions of a multitude of laws, policies, and reforms that dot these chapters add historical correctness and particularity to the general social and economic impact of this governmental revolution. The great legal historian Willard Hurst dubbed this transformation a significant watershed in the history of public policy in the United States, producing a country which by the 1920s bore little resemblance to its forebear. Public policy took on a content that was distinctive to the 20th century. Though Hurst did not write a full-scale history of this legal, administrative, and regulatory revolution, he provided a short list of 4 broad areas of policy change that evoked the scale and scope of this modern transformation. A. The new economy with its demands for more legal interventions in the marketplace, public utility regulation, collective bargaining, consumer protections, fiscal policy, and state planning. B. The new scarcity generated by population increases, crowded conditions, and growing resource demands requiring greater attention to conserving human and natural resources. C. The new security, physical, social, emotional, and consumer, apparent in such diverse policies as criminal law, welfare and insurance law, anti-discrimination law, and quality control. And D. The new science and technology requiring a public policy more attuned to issues of education, private research foundations, and communications. The present book includes many other lists of social and economic policy innovation, but Hurst's short one provides a fitting introductory glimpse into the new reach and range of the modern American state. Now, of course, historical transformations of this size and significance do not escape the attention of modern historians and social scientists for very long. Consequently, the history of this particular period is the subject of an enormous and ever-expanding scholarly literature. The history of late 19th and early 20th century law, state, and politics has never been more complete or sophisticated, as well as contested. But despite recent advances, important interpretive problems remain. Some of these interpretive problems have long been on my scholarly agenda. New Democracy is the book I committed to writing in the conclusion to People's Welfare, and it is fair to see it as something of a sequel to that earlier volume, completing a legal history of the American regulatory state from the first days of the New Republic to the onset of the New Deal. There is thus a necessary continuity of theme across the work as a whole. This book continues my long-term effort to debunk persistent and dangerous fallacies about an original American historical tradition defined primarily by transcendent pre-commitments to private individual rights, formalistic constitutional limitations, and laissez-faire political economy. In contrast, this project excavates an alternative American historical reality where public rights, popular lawmaking, and robust regulatory technologies take center stage in a narrative grounded in an examination of the actual practical workings and pragmatic public policy demands of a rapidly expanding and modernizing polity, society, and economy. 4 interpretive themes are integral to this project as a whole. 1. The workings of the American state. 2. The substance of American democracy. 3. The pragmatic concept of the political. And 4. The consequence of American public law. The American state. This project continues my effort to probe the distinctive and changing core features of the American state, showing concretely when and how the modern American state took shape and what made it different from what came before and after. Taking a more synthetic approach to statecraft and governance, it attempts to push past more partial views of the American state, limited to specific policy areas, individual state builders, administrative bureaucracies, or the federal government. It simultaneously attempts to move beyond abstract discussions or conceptual definitions of the American state per se. As John Dewey warned, the concept of the state, like most concepts which are introduced by the, is both too rigid and too tied up with controversies to be of ready use. The moment we utter the words the state, a score of intellectual ghosts rise to obscure our vision. The goal of this foray is not to define or debate the state, but to show it as closely as possible in its minute operations, at multiple levels of governance, in its changing technologies, and in its legacy of practical socio-economic consequences. Legal change was absolutely central to this historical development, as American statecraft was pulled from beneath the weight of common law practice and gifted a more modern pedigree in legislation, regulation, and administration. This pragmatic attempt to